Hi, welcome back. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please comment below and let me know how I'm doing and what you'd like me to talk about. I'd like to just talk about homophobia and homosexuality and narcissism and how it all comes together, because there's strong suspicion that a lot of narcs are homosexual. They're closet homosexual. They pretend that they're homophobic, or they are, or they act like they're homophobic. They absolutely cannot stand homosexuality. Like with my narc, if I watch something like Hollyoaks, where there's a lot of homosexuality and bi and different kind of deviancy and things, he would absolutely hate me watching it. He didn't agree with me watching it. Anything to do with homosexuality, he'd act like he absolutely abhorred it. It was disgusting to him. He couldn't bear the thought of it. And yet there's growing evidence to support that he is homosexual. He had homosexual colleagues message him at 3 o'clock in the morning. He had men hitting on him all the time, both in Pakistan and Birmingham and Southampton. His friends come over and stay with him. They share a bed. Which I know it's normal in an Asian culture, but, he absolutely hated women. He's so sexist and so misogynist. The comments he'd come out with, women are this, women are that. If there was a woman driver, she was struggling to drive, or she was taking too long, or she'd made the wrong turn or a wrong manoeuvre, before he even knew whether it was a woman or not, but I bet that's a woman driver. Only women would be doing that. You wouldn't get a man driving like that. It has to be a woman. So it's always constantly women this, women that. They absolutely hate women. And in Pakistan, they're so abusive to all the women there in Pakistan. And they seem to absolutely hate them, so abusive physically, verbally, emotionally, psychologically. It was like he was always acting, like he had this fake persona that he projected to people, and that's the persona that he wanted people to see. So that was the kind, caring, gentle, shy, timid person, the amazing dad, the amazing husband, the amazing stepdad, the amazing son, amazing brother, all of this. And yet, as soon as he flipped, it was like a completely different person. Like his complete face would change, he wouldn't be the same person. And, and things like porn, things like sexual deviancy, fantasies, sick, twisted fantasies about all the women in my life. Just, I don't even know if I should mention these kind of things. It's just sick and twisted. All the young women in my life that were close to me, relatives, friends, people at the school, next door neighbour's daughter, anybody that he could find, he would fantasize about them. And it got to the point where, he was obsessed with one of my friends, and I would say to him, like, no, you can't talk about her, you can't incorporate her in your sick fantasies. And he was just obsessed with her towards the end. It was like, why? And I was like, no, that is literally the one person in my life that you haven't tainted with your sick, twisted fantasies. You're not going to get to her. And he just had this obsession, it was all deviancy. And I've spoken to a lot of abuse victims and survivors and people struggling with all this, and they all seem to have an addiction to porn. They have these sexual deviancies, they have these sexual fantasies. It's all about violence and control and power over women, They want to force women to do things. They want to force themselves on women. They want to watch women gang rape. They want to watch women be abused, violence during intimacy, all that kind of thing turns them on. They seem to get a thrill, and they seem to get off on watching women being hit and beaten and hurt. SDM and things like that, all that kind of stuff really turns them on. And it all comes down to power and control and their hatred for women. Most of them are obsessed with their mothers. They're like mummy's boys, but at the same time, they've got this love-hate relationship where they hate women. It's almost like they blame, like there is strong evidence to suggest that they've all been sexually abused in childhood. Even with my narc, the things he said, the things he told me, he was so scared to sleep at night. He wouldn't sleep on his own. His brother, who was 3 years younger than him, would sleep share a single bed with his mother. So my ex-narc would actually go and sleep at the foot of his mum's bed, so her feet were near his face, because, you know, there wasn't any space for the three of them to share a single bed. But he was just so scared he wouldn't sleep on his own. His sister would have to go into class with him and sit throughout his lesson in class with him, because she was a lot older, so she'd finished school by then. And he was just scared, you know, they wouldn't let him out of their sight. They wouldn't let him go anywhere by himself. He wasn't allowed to play with his cousins that were living next door to him. He wasn't allowed to go to tutorials. You know, him and his younger three, you know, the four youngest brothers, they were all very fair. They were green-eyed, you know, good-looking, the kind of children that paedophiles would tend to pick on, you know. I think they call them chocolate boys in Pakistan and Asia and stuff, chocolate boys, you know. And there's a couple of names like that, were young, good-looking guys, you know, almost Nancy boy kind of looks, I guess. I don't know, you know, is that allowed? Are you allowed to say those kind of words? I don't know. But those are the kind of words that, you know, that people use to describe them, because men pick on these kind of boys, you know. They're good-looking, frail, timid kind of boys, shy. But as a child, you know, he was blonde, he was green-eyed, he was fair-skinned, and he's the typical target for a paedophile or somebody like that. And you know, the stories, he's not ever come out and admitted any of this. He's not ever come out and told me this. And yet, you know, the research I've been doing online, I've been speaking to all of these different victims and these survivors of narc abuse, it's a common trait that they were abused in childhood. They have homosexual tendencies. Some of them are surfing online for gay porn. Some of them have boyfriends on the side. Most of them are closet gays, so they will not come out and admit that they're gay, but they're closeted. Most of them will get married and have children to cover up the fact that they are homosexual. And yet they hate women, you know, the way they treat their women, the way they are so vile towards them, you know, they just want power and control. And with intimacy, you know, they're not interested in intimacy at all unless it's to do with power and control. So when they get power over them, when they can, you know, exert their power on them and hurt the women, you know, during intimacy, he started to get things like he'd want to hit and slap and hurt. He couldn't do it very hard because, you know, he'd get arrested for it. And yet he tried to incorporate in intimacy to make it look like it was just one of those things, you know. And they groom you. They literally, it's like a paedophile grooms their victim. Narcissists groom their victims. They groom them little by little. A slap here and there, an odd word here and there. Little by little, they increase the abuse. So to the point where at the beginning you let it slide because you don't actually realise that there's anything wrong. It just seems to be perfect, normal, everyday things. And then little by little, it gets worse and worse to the point where they can beat you up and you won't say anything. You're too scared to say anything. You're too involved. You're too beaten down. You know, they ground you down. Your self-esteem, your self-worth, it's so low that you get to the point where you won't question it anymore. You know, you feel you're worthless, that you deserve this kind of behaviour and this treatment. So you allow them to get away with it. And, you know, I think that's possibly one of the worst things is the realisation that he is possibly a homosexual, a closet homosexual, who's had a history of child abuse, who married just to cover up his sexual deviancy, to cover up his preferences, just to pretend and to portray himself as a straight person. You know, I don't care if you're homosexual. If you're homosexual, go and be homosexual. The thing is, in an Asian Muslim community, you cannot come out and say you're a homosexual. You cannot openly live a life of a homosexual. It's not accepted. You know, you would be considered as a Satan, you know, the worst of the worst. And ironically, I used to actually call him Satan last year. I used to go around calling him Satan because that's how he appeared to me, like the devil. You know, he had two sides to him. He was a complete Jekyll and Hyde. He'd completely flip and his face and everything would just change and he looked completely different. When he was in one of his fits, he was just completely different. But he cannot live a life of a homosexual Muslim man. You know, he's suddenly become really religious. He's praying 5 times a day. You know, he's attending the mosque. It's almost like he's trying to purge himself of these feelings, of these emotions, of, you know, what he actually is. But you can't hide that kind of thing. You know, you are basically condemning yourself to a lifetime of pain, a lifetime of pretending to be something you're not. And a narc, that's, you know, a narcissist is such a good liar. They just lie about every single thing. So nobody would know the truth. You know, when they tell you a lie, they say it as if it's gospel when they're telling you the truth. They'll say it in a joke. So you never know what is a truth and what is a lie with narcissists. And they find that funny. You know, my ex-narc would actually find it funny that nobody knew when he was telling the truth and when he was lying. And he'd say that that's one of his traits. Like, that's one of the good things, that he can actually get away with anything because nobody ever knows when he's lying, when he's telling the truth. I think it got to the point where he himself did not know what was truth anymore, what was a lie. And ironically, he would forever, you know, throughout our marriages, always say that, you know, I don't lie, that I'm, you know, me, myself, I don't tend to lie, you know, I would tend to always stick to the truth, I'm not committing any sins, I'm, you know, actually a really good Muslim. And yet, when it came down to him smearing me last year in the smear campaign and gaslighting me and turning everybody against me, the first thing he said was that, I'm a liar, that I was lying to him, that I was deceiving him, I was cheating him. I wasn't. You know, but he wanted to make it believe. And, you know, as far as I knew, he thought I was, you know, I told the truth, because I do. I don't tend to lie. I tend to tell the truth. You know, the white lie here and there that everyone might tell here and there, but, you know, I don't lie. I try and stick to the truth. I try and, you know, even often I've got myself into trouble by telling the truth. You know, I've shot myself in the foot. I've lost out financially. I've lost out emotionally, practically. And yet, you know, to me, if you tell the truth, if something is meant to be for you, you'll get it anyway, regardless, you know? There's no point in lying or deceiving or cheating or hurting other people for it. And yet, you know, a narcissist can accuse me of lying. You know, a narcissist who all he does since the day I've met him is lie. One after another, everything that he told me came apart. He had lied to me about every single thing. There was literally nothing left that he hadn't lied about. I just didn't know by the end of it. I didn't know what is the truth anymore. What is a lie? You know, what bit of what he's told me is truth? Because to me, it seems like everything was a lie. You know, he was living a lie. There was nothing about him that was truth. And to find out that, you know, he is possibly a homosexual, he's possibly in the closet, he married just for the sake of covering himself up, just to pretend to portray this image of being an amazing person. You know, he sat in that mosque last year and he called me a prostitute in front of the imam. You know, this is a homosexual, closeted homosexual who's possibly had a history of child abuse, who is a vile human being, who is a narcissistic abuser, who lies to everybody in his life. I don't think there's anybody in his life that he hasn't lied to. His mother, his sisters, his brothers, nieces, nephews, you know, everybody in his life, his friends, he lies to. And yet people believe every word he says because he's so believable. He's so manipulative. He's so good at pretending to be something he's not. He's so good at convincing people that he's something he's not. You know, people automatically assume that he's amazing. Yeah, if you like closet homosexual narcissistic abusers, yeah, it's great. But it's that face, you know, he's so good at using his assets, like good looking, young, you know, green eyes, fair skin. You know, he can completely break you and completely cut you up without even raising his voice. And he's so manipulative and so deceiving and so clever at that. But everybody believes him. You know, who's going to believe me over him? I'm just a crazy lunatic. Who's going to believe me? You know, I get upset. I cry. I shout. I scream. I don't know how to get my message across. You know, people don't want to listen to me. People don't want to believe me. He doesn't have a problem being believed. No matter how much he lies, he just gets away with it. Right, I'm going to sign out and leave it at that. Have a lovely day. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to comment and let me know how things are going. Take care. Have a lovely day. Stay safe.